What is going on, guys and girls? Level Up here at OnPointTactical, and welcome to another episode of Loadout. This is the video series where you go down to the comments box below or send me a private message and tell me what setup you like to run on the battlefield, the weapons and attachments you like to run, the classes, the equipment, and the perk trees that you like to run, and I will use that very same setup and then give you my ever so humble opinion on it. Today's comment comes in, and I'm not going to even try and pronounce your name. I'm sorry, I just don't want to offend you. But it says, if you're taking suggestions, I've got one for you. L85A2, ACOG for Conquest, or your preferable red dot sight for domination or team deathmatch. Run the laser slide, the laser sight, the underslung rail, the M9 with only a laser sight, medic bag and defibs on Conquest, or the 320, which I did not use, and the offensive perk tree. Now, I'll be the first to admit that the L85A2 in Battlefield 4 is really, it is quite good. One thing that I don't like about the L85A2 is that whenever you are strafing and firing at the same time, it gets into a sort of weird, like, floating mode where the accuracy is poor. It has horrible deviation whenever you start strafing and shooting at the same time. And since I didn't use the 320, I altered the loadout just a little bit. And I do recommend that you do this if you ever use the L85, and I put the vertical grip on there, which is going to bring your ADS accuracy while strafing back down to a much more manageable state. Now, the reload time on the L85 is nothing amazing. It does take quite some time to reload, and other than that, I don't have too many awful gripes about the L85. I was using the compensator some of the time, since you didn't specify a barrel attachment, but most of the gameplay that you see here is with the standard barrel installed, I guess you would say. Now, my preferable red dot sight, as many of you know, is the Kobra sight. I don't know if it's just because having that firing horizon seems to click with me, or if it's just that it's just such a thin profile as far as the actual steel parts on the sight itself, and that very well could be. But that is definitely my preferred sight on some automatic weapons. Some of the burst weapons, I do really enjoy the standard US reflex sight, which is definitely not a bad choice on the L85. I just prefer the Kobra sight quite a bit. Now, I can't actually recommend that you use the ACOG on the L85 just because its vertical recoil is somewhat intense compared to a lot of other assault rifles. On the M416 or, say, the Scar H, I would say that the ACOG or the M145 isn't too bad of a decision to make, but on the L85 I would say to stray away from those sights. And if you want to run a magnifier behind the Kobra sight, that is totally fine. Now, the actual laser sight, I gotta say, I'm not a huge fan of laser sights in the game, simply because, I mean, you can turn them on and off, yes, but if they're on, you're not gonna see that big of a benefit as opposed to just, say, running a vertical or ergo grip. So most of the time I opt to just run that. Now, you can run the vertical grip and the laser and get laser beam hipfire accuracy out of some weapons, but it gives your position away too much. The standard laser sight, anyway. If you run the green laser, it's not too awful bad. So if you're going to use a laser sight on any weapon, I would say use the green laser. It seems to hide you a bit better. But most of the time I would say to opt out for a magnifier, canted iron sights, or a flashlight, something that you just would make a bit more use of than the laser sight. Now, the M9 is a fantastic sidearm on PC and on PlayStation 3. Since you have to use the triggers on the PlayStation 4, the Xbox One, and the Xbox 360, you can't really spam fire them that fast, the pistols in Battlefield 4. So there really isn't much reason to use a 9mm on any of the consoles because you can't spam fire, so you can't get your damage per second up to where it really matters that much. So I would say, for me, and for a lot of players out there, it would be much more practical to run with a 93R or an M1911. M9 is a fantastic sidearm if you can tap fire if you're on PC or, like I said, PlayStation 3, and you can spam fire it a bit better. Then it is a fantastic sidearm, and I have nothing against the pistol. It's just because of the way that the controller is set up on PlayStation 4, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense for me to use it personally. I do recommend the 1911 over the M9 most of the time just because it seems to make a very well-rounded pistol. But then again, you know, I'm up to trying new things. The M320 that I didn't use, I would say is only for noobs, and there's a reason it's called the noob tube. It's almost overpowered. It's too easy to get kills with it at ranges and players behind cover, and I personally don't like that sort of gameplay. I much prefer to revive my teammates and heal my teammates, give myself help, which is part of how I am able to get a lot of the kill streaks that I get in Battlefield 4, is because I can plop down that medic bag and then sort of just move on from there instead of having to hang out for 30, 45 seconds or whatever and wait for the auto-generate health or whatever you want to call it to catch up, which you can do, but I would say for most of your gameplay you're going to want to stray away from the 320 and just stick to the medic bag and the defibs, and I think that you're going to have a bit more luck with that. Now, I didn't play any team deathmatch or domination in any of the gameplay. I played both game modes off to the side, but I've discovered that for this weapon and for a lot of weapons, the smaller scale combat in squad deathmatch is actually quite fun. It's a little bit more about sector control versus just running over the entire map, so it makes some pretty chaotic moments whenever you have all 4 squads trying to fight in the same room. It can get a little bit hectic, but it can also be very organized and very fun a lot of the other times. So squad deathmatch, I would say definitely try playing some squad deathmatch if you haven't, or even if you had. I'm sure that you know that it is just really, really fun to play squad deathmatch. So what would I recommend that you change in this loadout from what you listed originally? I would say stay away from the combat optics on the L85. It kicks a little bit too hard. There isn't really much sense running the underslung rail, since the 320, even if you have the 320, it generally makes more sense to keep it off of your primary weapon, and it certainly is a lot less obtrusive whenever you're in the middle of a reload on the L85, because you bring the weapon sort of up into the screen, while the 320 gets put like right in the center of your viewing area on the L85 just because of how the reload animation works. So I would say run some sort of grip. I opted out, like I said, for the vertical grip because of the drift that it starts to get into with bullet deviation as you're firing and strafing with the L85, but that can come down to personal preference. I would say that the compensator is a good option on the L85. You do get a bit of wobble going whenever you're shooting at full auto with the L85, and you might run a suppressor as well. That could be somewhat effective on domination and team deathmatch. I would say that if you're going to keep to the M9, put on a micro red dot and probably put on a suppressor, but I would say otherwise I would move on to the 93R, Glock 18, 44 Magnum, or M1911. Basically anything but a 9mm I think you're going to be a little bit better off with, especially if you're on console. I'm LevelUp here at OnPointTactical. Thanks for watching, guys, and I hope to see you guys on the battlefield.